Okay, fantastic. So with no more delays, my name is Ayelet Artzi. I'm from Customer Experience Engineering team working on Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management tool, and I'm here to share with you some guidance for developing and implementing the risk management in your organization. So let's start with a few words on the problem statement. Organizations today are increasingly challenged to stay aligned with evolving business requirements, and yet they want to still continue and protect against the expanding attack that is increasing from day to day. We see that the cybercrime economy continued to democratize tooling and services. That means that we see in each organization a huge amount of tools, services, and from the other side, the time to remediate is not reducing, but the other way, it's increasing. We see that the vulnerability from source perspective, time perspective, and the complexity of it remains a pain. And here where our tools get into the picture, and let's talk a bit about it. So before getting into the details of the Defender Vulnerability Management tool, I want to talk a bit about the Unified Security Operation Platform. As you see, it's layered. We have the AI, we have the XDR with all the different Defender tools, we have the SIEM solution, which is the Sentinel, and we have the XSPM, the exposure management, and all of them are creating one big puzzle to get a unified security operation platform. This operation platform is informed by many diverse sources with high volume of threat intelligence, with many feeds and signals per day. Security teams are looking for consolidated view. And this is where we are getting into the picture and trying to bring one holistic view. And as part of that, we have also the Defender Vulnerability Management. So let's talk for a second on what is the Defender Vulnerability Management in the very simple way. The Vulnerability Management, this is a tool that allows us, the organization, to first identify what are the assets that we want to protect on, and later on to assess the status of it, the criticality of it, and correlate it with vulnerabilities that are related to items that are installed on those devices, and eventually give us prioritization. Using that, we can proactively identify what is the most risky in our environment and shift left, try to catch it as soon as possible and avoid exploits in our environment. So eventually, the Defender Vulnerability Management tool suppose and is improving the overall security posture of the organization, reducing the risk, and ensuring that we have compliance with the industry regulation. You can see here in the example, this is a Nitro attack. Nitro is a critical vulnerability in the media libraries of Chromium that can lead to gaining initial access using specific unpatched vulnerabilities on internet-facing devices. Cases like that can potentially lead to an attack to critical asset and sensitive storage account. This is where using the Defender Vulnerability Management tool can help and reduce the risk of such cases to happen, indicating on incident sources, and assist with what needs to do, what are the remediation steps. So I would like to take 2 minutes and talk a bit about what are the plans that we have for Defender Vulnerability Management. So as part of the Defender for Endpoint, or as part of the E5, the whole package of the Defenders tool, the vulnerability management is coming with this package with all the core capabilities. Those capabilities include the ability to see the list of devices that you have in the environment, include the correlation between devices and vulnerability, and give you vulnerability assessment, prioritized list of that, and the ability to remediate it. This can also provide configuration assessment, security configuration assessment, and of course, the ability to track and monitor all of that, and a list of software inventory in your organization. Upon those core capabilities that are coming with the MDE, with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint or E5 package, We are providing vulnerability management add-on capabilities. This is another set of capabilities that provide different inventories like certificate inventories, hardware and firmware, browser extension. This is also include security baseline assessment to allow external benchmark and comparing it to our environment, the devices, and and the different policies that customer can choose. This also include authenticated scan for Windows, which is the agentless. With that, for customers that have not yet using MDE or E5 package, we have the Defender for Vulnerability Standalone. The Standalone is a vulnerability management solution by its own that includes all the set of the capabilities. So one of the major focus strategic items of Defender Vulnerability Management tool is the ability to support any platform, any asset, any device type. And as you can see here, today the tool supports endpoints and servers as usual, Windows, Mac, Linux, also mobile devices, network devices, cloud virtual machines, managed or non-managed. We also have enterprise IoT within the portal and also OT devices. Of course, we also have the cloud support, and MDVM is being used for container scans. Okay, so when talking about the vulnerability management pillar, I'm going to divide it into 4 pillars. The first one is the availability and the assessment. We need to discover to know which device do we want to protect, and then we need to assess it. Then we have a huge amount of data and we need to prioritize it. So how are we doing it in a proactive way? Of course, I want to remediate and reduce the risk of my environment, and then I need, as an organization, I need the ability to access the data. Okay. Let's start with visibility and assessment. I will just check timelines. Okay, so how do we discover and assess assets to provide insight to the vulnerability and the risk? The vulnerability management, in order to do device discovery, we are leveraging the MDE agent, the Sense agent, and we divide it into 2 different types: managed devices that we can onboard with this agent, and unmanaged devices that with some reason we cannot onboard them or install the agent, and we need an agentless approach to discover those devices. So eventually, of course, we can't protect what we don't know about, and we must have 100% of device discovery with any kind of asset type. So in a second, we will move to the, not in a second, but in a few slides, we will move to to a live demo where I will share with you a few other inventories that we have. Before that, I will talk a bit about 2 major scores that we have as part of the MDVM. Within the MDVM, one of the scores called Vulnerability Exposure Score. This is reflecting the risk of the organization. By that means that we want it to be the lowest as possible. The other score is the secure score. This is a collective configuration posture scoring that allows us to understand the compliance of our organization. And of course, this should be as high as possible. So in the dashboard for the Defender Vulnerability Management that can be used either for executive summary or operational system teams that comes in the morning and would like to check what is the risk of my organization and what do I need to do to reduce it, we have the dashboard page where we see all the data here. So as I said, the goal is minimum exposure score and maximum secure score. So how is it working? We talked about the Sorry, okay. We talked about the device inventory. We are collecting information about devices. Which operating system is it? Is it a critical device or not? Is it internet-facing device or not? What are the software that are running on it from versions and so on? Many attributes that are being collected on the device itself. On the other side, we are also collecting many from many external sources like NVD, Volcheck, IBM, and more vulnerability information. And we also collect, as part of that, attributes on those vulnerabilities. CVSS, EPSS, is it exploit or not? Are there any alerts that are related? And then we are doing the correlation between the device and the vulnerability, and we can have a list of which vulnerability on which device can we find it. And we have a huge amount of data, and now we would like to tell you, you need to focus only on those items. Because eventually we want to save resource and we want to save time to handle it, and we want to focus on what needs to be focused. So for that, we have the risk-based prioritization model. We call it the TLV. This includes a combination of threat factors, likelihood factors, and value factors. And eventually, out of those device attributes and vulnerability attributes and environments attribute, we are eventually calculating the machine exposure score, and out of that, the org exposure score. And this is the risk of the organization. And then we have security recommendations. So now that we know that your risk is X, what do you need to do to remove it, to mitigate it? And here we have the security recommendation tab that includes prioritized list of tasks that the organization needs to make. And for each security recommendation, we have an indication. If you will implement this security recommendation, this is how your organization will be secured. This is how the risk will be reduced. So in each security recommendation, we are sharing aggregate CVEs under this security recommendation, how many devices are being exposed and needs to be patched, what is the impact of this security recommendation, which are the exposed devices, what are the remediation details, and so on. So vulnerability management teams or security persona usually gets into the security recommendation and check what he needs to do to reduce and save the organization. So now that we know that we have prioritization, we need to remediate. So I know what are the gaps in my environment and how I want to handle it. So it can be different persona in different organizations. There are some that it's the device owner that needs to patch it. There are some that it's the vulnerability management team. And it's very vary. And then we are trying to provide a list of tools that will help each one of those personas to handle it as good as possible. So of course, we are sharing the remediation actions that needs to be done, the security recommendation, and for each one of them, there are two options. One of them is to request remediation request. This means that a ticket will be open in Intune and allow the relevant team or the relevant owner to mitigate it. And of course, within the portal, we will be able to track it and to see that, for example, out of 40 impacted devices, 10 were already fixed, and we have a due date of 2 weeks from today. So this is the comprehensive information that you can see in the portal and understand how to mitigate the risk. There is also an option to get an exception. So for example, I'm handling this risk with a different tool, or I accept the risk as an organization. I have the ability to submit an exception for a defined period of time. I can submit it either on one device, set of devices, or all devices, and this will not be included within the risk organization. Besides that, we have a few remediation actions that we are allowing through the tool. One of them is the block vulnerable application. So assuming that you have a vulnerable application, one of the things that you can do is either to inform the user and let him know you have a vulnerable application, please update, or entirely block it. So you won't be able to open it on the computer. So this is the remediation request. We will see it in a second in the portal. Same for the block application. We talked about the exception, and I want to take a few minutes before the demo to talk to you a bit about data access. So we have a few ways to access the data. Of course, the portal itself, everything is available within the portal. You can download reports, you can use the advanced hunting. And for those of you who are not familiar with the advanced hunting allows a very easy way of plug and play to build your own custom query and query the data for any material that you want. And advanced hunting can cover all the Defender tools. That means that you can do correlation between vulnerability management and devices, vulnerability management and emails, or any correlation that you would like to do. You have all the data available also to build your custom query. Of course, we have reporting within the portal itself and also outside of the portal. All the data is available through API, and you can build either executive or operational dashboard, and or to do some connections to system ticketing or any other tooling that is required. So this is how the advanced hunting look like. It's allow you proactively to inspect events in the organization. It allows you to build custom detection rules and hunt for actually anything that you want. So those are the built-in reporting. We have few reports that can provide you vulnerability data. Those are out-of-the-box reports. You can see trends in those reports. You can see what is the health of your device in this report, and also report related to secure configuration. And as I said, from API perspective, all the data is available on API. There are many customers who are using the API to automate process within their organization. The API can be used either to automate some tasks or to integrate with other security tools, and of course to generate custom reports and dashboards. From connector perspective, within the XDR portal, you can check which connectors do we have, either to third-party applications or tools, and there is a very easy integration. So using the API, we can choose any external tool that will help with building a dashboard. One of them can be Power BI, but this is only one example. For the Power BI, we did build a ready template that will allow customers to enjoy from around 9 different dashboards, either executive or operational, with all the vulnerability management data in their organization. Okay, so I will talk about the day-to-day best practices just from the vulnerability management perspective for a second. We have two approaches. One of them is to be very proactive and on a daily basis to do active actions to reduce the organizational risk exposure. For that, on a daily basis, customers are getting into the dashboard, checking security recommendation and what are the tasks that they need to do. There are some customers that will say, I want to go with a reactive approach. I want to be notified only on critical events, high sensitive events, and then we have the email notification that allow to custom exactly which notification do you want to get. And you can also in that approach and also in the proactive approach always get into the weaknesses page, and we have a very easy filtering mechanism to filter either by different, actually, either by asset type or by CVE number. The filtering is, you can do the filter on anything that you want, and this will allow you to see the relevant data. So if you heard about a specific CVE or 0-day that was published, you can just go into the portal and search for this specific CVE. So 0-day, as we know, 0-day, those are critical vulnerabilities that still do not have patch available. Those are usually highly prioritized within the MDVM, within the Defender Vulnerability Management tool. We are allowing few automatic actions. First, notification is being sent. Second, we are sharing some security recommendation and compensating control to take in place until a patch will be available. And of course, that once a patch is released, the recommendation is being changed and we have a security update. I will say a few words on posture and compliance. So as we said at the beginning, as part of the core capabilities, we have the vulnerability assessment, and we also have the compliance assessment, misconfiguration. So as you can see here in the print screen, we can do it related to different components, accounts, application, operating system. And as part of the security recommendation that we are providing you, we will also see some misconfiguration recommendation. And this is also in a proactive way. We need to make sure that from configuration perspective, the device is secure enough. This is always with the approach of shift left and try to make sure that your device is well enough protected, so we won't need to move to the next phase after something happened in our environment. So in addition to that, we have the baseline assessment capability. This is external benchmark of, we can say, one-off configuration, and you will start and enjoy on real-time posture assessment for the devices and the policies that you have defined. Okay, so I will move to a quick demo. Can you see my screen well, please? Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes, that's good.
Great. Okay, so this is the XDR portal. I hope that most of you are familiar with it. The first screen that we can see here, this is the device inventory. Device inventory, we discussed at the beginning on the Sense agent that allows us manage and unmanaged devices. Some of them are onboarded, some of them are not, but allows us to understand what are the devices that we need to protect on. So you can see a list of devices, and for each device we gather information like IP, criticality level, what is the category of those devices, and the type, risk level, operating system, and so on. If we will get into each device, we will see much more details on this device. So here we can see all the attributes of the device. We can see what is the risk level, exposure level, are there any incidents on this device, security policies, and so on. So going back for the devices, the Sense agents collect information and we are sharing it here. You can see executive summary of how many critical assets we have, high risk asset, and so on. You can also see here number of how many non-onboarded devices do I have. This is a risk. I want to onboard them or to protect them from vulnerability perspective. You can see here that we have the different tabs. If I want to filter only on network devices, only on enterprise IoT or OT devices, and so on. So those are the devices that I would like to protect on. I can also see that I have the critical assets tag, and I also have the internet facing tag. So those are the devices that I need to protect. And then if I will go under endpoint to the vulnerability management into the dashboard, this is the dashboard that we've discussed on. We can see the exposure score. In my test tenant, this is 54 out of 8. I can see the trend of the exposure score. I can see a few other relevant things like top vulnerable software, top exposed devices, what is the security secure configuration score, the compliance score of my environment, And I can also get from this page to the top security recommendation page. So it can either be achieved from here or from the navigation bar. And if I will click on it, I will see a list of prioritized items. Those are the items that I need to implement to protect my organization. For each security recommendation, we can see that I have how many exposed devices do I have? Is it exploitable or not? Of course, details on weaknesses and how many exposed critical devices do I have. I can also see the impact on the exposure score, assuming I will implement this recommendation. So eventually, I have a huge list here. I don't need to prioritize it because it's already prioritized. And in the security recommendation, I can see how many exposed devices do I have, what are the CVEs, what activities do I need to do, and I can also open a software page, the software page itself. I can also from that open the device page itself, so I can play with exactly the data that I'm looking to see here. Okay, so we have the recommendation, but there are some organizations that don't want recommendation. They want to see only the data itself. So for that, we have the weaknesses page, where we have a list of all CVE out there, if they are supported or not supported. For each CVE, we can see all the attributes that we are collecting: CVSS, severity, when this vulnerability was published or first detected, is it exploitable, and so on. And for each vulnerability, we have executive summary that is generated by AI with few parts: summary, impact, remediation. And here I can learn more about what is this vulnerability. And what is the impact of this vulnerability? And the most important, how can I patch this vulnerability? I can see all the attributes that I'm collecting on the CVE. I can see the CVSS, I can see the EPSS, I can see when it was detected or updated. And I can also see which are the exposed devices. And of course, to dig into each one of those devices, I can also see affected software if there are. So I will be able to better understand that those needs to be patched. And of course, I can open the vulnerability page to gain more data on the CV itself. So as I said, there are some organizations that are using weaknesses rather than the security recommendation. They can use it either from the portal or grab it with an API with all the attributes of each CV and implement their business use case. Assuming on each security recommendation that we saw, I have the ability to, in a second. Okay, so in each security recommendation, I have the ability to request remediation. And here I can request remediation for a specific time period with a specific priority. I can see how many exposed devices do I have. And as soon as I will do that, as we said, a ticket and engine will be open. Another thing that I can do from here is the exception option. I need to justify it, explain, for example, this is third-party control or risk accepted. I will add the duration and I will submit it, and this will be reduced from the overall exposure score of the organization. Okay, so after we submitted a remediation request to Intune, I can track it in the remediation tab, and I can see how many devices per security recommendation were already patched and mitigated, how many are still I need to take care of. I can see the due date, who created it, and all the relevant details that I'm looking for. Another important thing to mention. So let's talk for a few seconds on inventories. So we have the device inventory, and here we have a few additional inventories. The first one is the software inventory. This is a list of all the applications that are installed on all my organization devices. On each software, I'm of course collecting more details to understand to which operating system is it related, who is the vendor, do I have threats on this application or not, and additional information. on each one of them, I can get into it and get more details, understand if there are any weaknesses /CVEs /vulnerabilities that are associated. I can see on which devices is it installed. I can see if those CVEs that are associated to this software, is it critical? Do I need to take care of it now? And all the relevant details. For vulnerable application, as we said, one of the remediation actions that we can do is block the entire application and block customers from accessing this application. We are also introducing the vulnerable component inventory. This is a predefined list of components that might appear in more than one application. A great example is OpenSSL. Many developers are using OpenSSL in many different applications. So in case there is an issue with the OpenSSL itself, we want to identify it and inform our customers on that one to make their life easier. So on each component, we can get into it and see what are the vulnerable files to correlate it to a specific application, which application is it installed as part of the vulnerable files, and then update the application and make sure that this is no longer exists. The rest of the three inventories are add-on inventories. The first one talks about browser extension. This is a list of all browser in the environment, including permission that are required to each one of those applications. As you can see, for example, permission risk high, how many devices have it installed, and all the details. And then you can grab the data either in API or advanced hunting query or from the portal itself and build the business use case that you want to implement. Another inventory is the certificate inventory, where we have executive summary, but we can also dig into server certificate or client certificate, who is the trusted publisher, and we have executive summary for each one of those pages. You can see here if we have weak algorithm, about to be expired certificate, already expired, and also here we can take the data and build the business use case. For example, I want to renew all the about to be retired certificate, or any use case that I want to implement. So of course we are covering server and client machine certificate. And the last inventory talks about hardware and firmware. This is also this is a predefined list of vendors like Lenovo, HP, Dell, Microsoft, where we are identifying hardware and firmware and vulnerabilities upon them. So this is another inventory. We talked in the presentation a bit about baseline assessment. So this is how it looks like. I have a summary of all the baseline assessment that I have, but I can also go to profile and say that I want to build a new baseline for Windows 10. So I will create it. I will choose which benchmark, which software do I want, which benchmark do I want, and what is the compliance level, and then I will get a list of policies, so I will be able to choose what is relevant to my organization for those devices, and eventually I will get a report of all devices with a set of policies, and the answer, is it compliant or not compliant? So for example, for this one, I have 7 devices in my pool. I can see, I can get all the details if I will get into it and into each device. Okay, so I think what I'll do, I will also share a few focus areas for the team. So one of the focus area is to be able to support any device, any type, all the time, and do it in real time. So the scan is continuous. This is one of the unique items for this tool. We are always scanning the devices. We have the Sense agent running and collecting information from the device. So for devices that we can install the agent, it's very easy. And we also have the agentless approach that allows us also to get vulnerabilities for non-managed devices. In addition to that, one of the focus areas is to have full coverage around OS applications and CVEs, where we are trying to minimize the time that organization need to invest in solving it. So if it's first to be very accurate with the details that the system will bring, and second, some remediation automation activities that are part of the solution itself. In addition to that, Microsoft just a few months ago shared that there is exposure management solution, talk about posture. MDVM is one of the data sources to this solution, provides all the device info, and eventually using the exposure score, you can get holistic posture picture of your organization. This includes data sources like devices, cloud, identity, and many more. In addition to that, we are doing many activities to try and shift left, identify policies and connection between unmanaged devices to managed devices using different protocols and block them as soon as possible. So all of that is soon to come in the product. And there are a few additional focus areas that we will share in additional session that will be probably very soon. I will pause here for any questions.
Perfect. Ayelet, we have lots of great questions, but do we want to move into the poll, or do you need to finish up the demo?
No, I think this is good for now with the demo.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and share a link here in the chat, and we're going to take a moment just to conduct a quick survey. It's just one question, and then we will jump into Q&A shortly after. I'll just give everyone a moment or two to go ahead and answer that after you paste it in your browser.
You can also scan the QR code on the screen to answer as well.
Okay, so I'm sure a few more submissions will come in over time, but we can start getting into Q&A because we do have quite a few questions. So I will go ahead and start at the beginning. Is there a way to add premium Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management to Defender for Servers P1 without upgrading to P2?
So there is ability to purchase the standalone. It's not very common, but this is the optional. The preferred way is, of course, to upgrade to P2.
Okay, great. Does the G5 license include the Defender Vulnerability Management add-on?
I'm sorry, can you repeat, please?
Sure. Does a G5 license include the Defender Vulnerability Management add-on?
G5 or E5?
It says G5.
Okay, so I'm not sure on the G5 license, I must say. E5 includes the MDVM core capabilities. I'm not familiar with G5, but we can take this offline if you can please publish who is asking, and I, of course, will follow up.
Sure. Okay, great. Can we use MDVM to do a vulnerability assessment of an on-premise Exchange server installation?
can we use, I'm sorry for just a second, sorry for a
That's
second.
okay. Sure thing.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, can you please repeat? I'm sorry for that.
Sure thing. Can we use MDVM to do a vulnerability assessment of an on-premise Exchange server installation?
I think the answer is yes. I need to validate it. So if we can capture this question as well, but
Okay.
assuming this is the operating system is Windows or Linux, there shouldn't be any problem with that.
Okay. How does Defender for Cloud fit into this picture? For example, if a customer has Defender for Cloud and enables the Defender for Servers P2 workload, I'm assuming that provides the vulnerability management capability for servers onboarded to MDC. Is that correct?
Correct. So Defender for Cloud uses the same mechanism as what we've just seen in the last hour. Same, we are collecting vulnerability information and doing the correlation for both on-premise and cloud devices.
Okay. How does Defender Vulnerability Management scan and monitor Linux hypervisors and other network devices for auth and non-auth scans?
So for auth, it uses just the agentless approach with the authenticated scan. In case there is ability to install the agent, then it's much easier, and we have the agent that is running on the device and collecting device info and doing the correlation in the same way.
Okay, great. Does the scanner actually have the ability to scan all network resources, inclusive of IoT devices such as cameras and TVs?
Yes.
Okay, great. It sounds like.
So I will say,
go ahead.
maybe I will say another word on that.
Mhm,
So
sure.
in the last year, there was a huge effort to include enterprise IoT within the E5 portal, and of course, as part of the core capabilities from licensing perspective. So if you're using the vulnerability management under the device, under the asset, the asset inventory, the device inventory, you will see the tab of enterprise IoT, and you will find there all the devices that are identified as enterprise IoT, like cameras, printers, any kind of enterprise IoT device, and you will get end-to-end capabilities on those devices, vulnerability, discovery, prioritization, and so on. OT devices are also part of OT in XDR. We just we have OT devices that are being discovered by a network sensor, and we just started the journey to have OT in XDR. That means that you can discover OT devices either by the sensor, but also in a zero time using the MDE agent itself. And then you will be able to approve them, categorize them based on site security, and enjoy all those capabilities and more. Posture is only one of the OT capabilities that customer will be able to enjoy. In addition to that, we have the discovery, the threat protection, the connection to attack graph, and this is also part of the XDR advantage because we have all the data sources. So we will be able to build attack graph and share from this identity to this device. This is on-premise, this is cloud. So we have all the data sources, and we can just build for you the map. So it will be time, it will save time, save resources, and get you focused on where you need to continue and handle.
Great, thank you. It sounds like Defender for Endpoint scans the network. Is there any concern about this causing noise on the network or latency, especially on OT ICS networks?
So I can say that we're doing massive testing and QA on that. And as for now, I'm not familiar with any concerns or anything that is outside of the boundaries of additional agent on the device.
Okay. Does it support other public cloud like AWS?
Yes, of course, all the public clouds are supported.
Does MDVM cover VM scale sets of orchestration type uniform as MDE doesn't support it?
So VMSS is the work in process, and it will be supported soon.
Great. Let me go ahead. Our team is doing a good job answering questions. Does blocking a vulnerable app just put an IOC file hash block on the MDE portal?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. And we do have some people asking for a link to Power BI templates, so I believe we'll provide that once we get towards the end of questions.
So let me share actually 2 links. One of them is related to how to use, to a blog, how to use the export API. And in it, you can find the link to the Power BI. And the second one, just a second, I will share it. So this is the first one. And the second one is Ninja training. Ninja training for Defender vulnerability management. And there you can find external documentation to all the items and capabilities that we talked today. And of course, we are here for any questions if there are.
Another is, does the telemetry frequency increase? It would be handy to have vulnerability data that's as close to real time as possible.
So the scan is continuous because we are utilizing the MD agent. So it's on almost real time that you're supposed to see the data within the portal. If I understand correctly, the request here is the ability to at least to understand when was the last scan, and I can take it and add it as a feature request to our team. But I will again say that it's continuous scanning. The agent is running on the device all the time and collects data, and the correlation is being done all the time.
Thank you. Okay, great. Another is, the costs are all per user per month, but the tool also discovers devices that are not managed and do not have Entra ID users. Is it every user in your Entra ID that needs a license? If you have a many-to-one relationship of users to devices, does this reduce the number of licenses required?
So it's device license, I think, and it's per tenant, not related to identity. So the number of devices in your organization, but I must say, if we can take this one also to validate, and we can maybe in an offline email reply on that or in the chat.
Great. Okay. We had someone who was concerned that you were presenting from the future, but we went ahead and let them know that.
Not yet. Not yet.
There is a follow-up question to network scanning. How does it deal with Linux systems? Can it do authenticated scanning? And if so, what kind of access is needed on the system? And do we need to deploy an agent? The question is asked because the performance results of Defender on Linux seem very poor.
Okay, so I don't know on the Defender results on Linux. I can say that also for that, we have a dedicated team that is working on the Linux state, and I think it was improved dramatically in the last few months. So if it wasn't tested in the last few months, it's worth testing it again, especially around servers. From authenticated scan, currently Windows authenticated scan is supported. Linux is in the roadmap, but I don't have ETA to share. I can also say that we have a huge effort within the organization to support unmanaged devices and to come with initiatives and very creative solutions on how do we guarantee maximum visibility of device of all the devices in the organization. So I will say on that one, stay tuned, and as soon as we will have something that we can publish, I'm sure that we will do another webinar related to unmanaged devices and how do we suggest to control it.
Thank you. And if we have about 6 more minutes of questions, so thanks for hanging in there. Defender portal is for IT operator persona. What is the view for end users that actually do remediations? Is it the MDC recommendations view that's restricted to their subscriptions?
So the Defender tools support RBAC and scoping, role-based access control, scoping, and I will say specifically for vulnerability management, many of the customers that I'm in contact with Are you utilizing the API and building either a custom dashboard or using system ticketing or using SIM solution if they need to inform some specific team that is responsible, for example, on Windows devices or a device owner or anything like that? So we don't, the vulnerability management today in the portal itself is also not connected to CMDB. And usually there is a need to do this connection to be able to inform the user or the team what system needs to be patched. So usually it's either reports and extracting them and doing some massaging on them, or creating some custom dashboard or system ticketing or SIM solution.
Okay, thanks. What metric is used to prioritize the risk in security recommendations?
Okay, so we talked about the TLV model. We are taking attributes from the device. We are taking attributes from on the vulnerabilities, and we have a matrix to calculate device risk. It takes items like criticality of the device. Is it the internet exposed? Is the CVEs exploitable out there or not? Do we have alerts that are related? What is the CVSS? What is the CPSS? Many attributes, eventually calculating machine exposure score, and out the average of all the machines is the organizational exposure score. By that, we are prioritizing the security recommendation that will help reduce this organizational risk score.
Okay, great. Are there, let me see here. The MDVM console and the VM accessed by DFC, are they the same or different?
Same, I think. We can validate, but most likely the same.
Okay, great. If there are faulty vulnerability informations reported to Microsoft, will you contact, for example, Dell, Intel to check for failures, or does it have to be reported to the owner of the CVE?
No, so of course, in the portal, I didn't share it, but in the portal for each CVE, you have a button that's called report inaccuracy. So if you see false positive or inaccuracy, or you feel some details are not correct, you will submit the report inaccuracy. We have a huge team dedicated just for that. And they will check it. We will update it in the public documentation, specific public documentation to this report inaccuracy and CVE coverage.
Okay, great. How does Defender define exposed devices?
If we have a correlation of devices and vulnerability on those devices, then those are devices that needs to be patched, and those are exposed devices.
Okay, great. And I think we'll do just 2 or 3 more. Is agentless scanning of MDC/CSPM part of MDVM, or is it different?
The agentless scanning, it's part of MDVM.
Okay. Are there features we have seen included in the VM core license, or does it require extra licensing?
No, most of the features that we saw are part of the core licensing. Those are the device discovery, vulnerability assessment, configuration assessment, prioritization, ability to track it, software inventory. All of that is part of the core capabilities and part of MDE.
Okay, great. And we will end on one here. Can you explain the colors green, red, blue in the graph of exposed devices?
In the graph of exposed devices.
That's difficult without your screen. We can go ahead and go to another and maybe answer that in text.
I'm not sure which graph is referred, but I'm sure there is color coding there. If not, we can probably, I don't know which graph are you referring, so maybe you can take it offline. If the one that specifically asked this question is willing to share with us, then we can get back offline.
Okay, that's great. And then I think just one more. Is there a difference between Defender for servers and Defender for cloud, if that's relevant?
it's from vulnerability management perspective, same. Defender for cloud and Defender for servers.
Okay, great. I think that is it for us, Ayelet. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking the time to answer all of those. Oh, excuse me. Hold on.
Mhm.
Okay, so thank you, Ayelet, for being our guest and for sharing such great information with our community. Also, thank you to the Q&A team who helped with answering questions and providing resourceful information. To all the listeners still on the line, if you're someone who wishes to aid in the protection of the world from cyber threats and desires to have a say in shaping our strategies, blueprints, and recommendations, then we invite you to become part of our security community. Together, we can make a global impact. So join us at aka.ms/securitycommunity. This is also where you'll be notified about the upcoming webinars, events, and other announcements. For those of you who may have additional questions on today's topic or other product-related questions, please raise them on our Microsoft Tech Community discussion space at aka.ms/mdxdr community. Thank you all for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you.